we're going to welcome Paula Calderon to our show, The Journey. So we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Davey. I'm very happy to be here.
For sure. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you about? What do you like?
Okay, well, I'm 24 years old. I studied psychology, chemistry, and fine arts. Right now I'm working, in the HR department and the marketing department for a big corporate. It's been a little bit challenging because I wasn't expecting to work in the private business because I would love to be able to help people, like work in the public sector. So I'm also Jehovah's Witness. That's super important in my life. That defines who I am and the type of life I want to live, and I'm very proud of. And yeah, I'm from Colombia. That's it.
Okay. So let's talk about your childhood. You are from Colombia, so what was going on during that time?
Well, my childhood was beautiful. Everything was about playing, driving my bicycle with my friends. We used to collect like little insects, and just have like a zoo,
Okay.
It was pretty fun. Like I had a lot of fun back then.
That's good. And so when you were in elementary, what was your dream job when you were a kid?
When I was in elementary, I wanted, I was very immature. I was very, very immature. So I wanted to be a model.
Okay.
And I started my career as a model when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And I studied in John Casablanca. And I thought that was going to be like the big part of my life. And that was my big dream.
Okay, so to be a model. And what made you want to be a model? I'm curious.
Well, the culture in America and in Colombia, they're not too different. I mean, I think the main difference would be that we are a collectivistic culture and America is an individualistic culture, but we've been highly influenced by American culture in many sense. And the first sense that I would point that it's connected with why I wanted to be a model is that it's a very superficialistic society. Okay. It's everything about looks. It's everything about the standard of living you have. So that's why I wanted I thought that would make me super happy if I can be a model and be recognized and have a very accommodated life.
Okay, so the lifestyle, that's what you liked.
Yes, that's what I wanted. So that's what I thought. But again, I was very immature. I didn't know, why I really wanted. Now that as I grew up, I started to understand that, I was affected by the culture, by the music, by what I saw.
Okay.
Because our values are created with the different things of media that we consume. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that at that time. For me, it was I just want to look like that model in the TV. Oh, look, this show is so popular. So I was not mature enough to internalize what it comes along that. Okay. And also, I was having, I was growing, I was creating my values. So yeah, that's what happened.
Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't know that you wanted to be a model at 13. And so you said you started modeling. How long did that last?
Well, I started to study to become a model when I was 13.
Okay.
So the program lasted 1 year. Okay. So you take several classes like runway, makeup, facial expressions, body language, some classes like that. And after a year, I graduate. So, and then I started, to work as a model, when I was around 15.
Okay, nice. And so, do most girls in Colombia, have that dream or had that dream when you were little, to be a model? Or what was, the popular thing?
Yes, many girls wanted to be a model. And plastic surgery was, very common among 15 years old, 16 years old.
Wow, that's
Yes. So
Certainly.
So we're talking about that this is something culture-wise that it was impacting young women, and that's why now that I'm a grown-up, mature woman, of course I'm still to work in a lot of things, unable to recognize like how society impacts our life, and especially our young ones that are the most susceptible towards this influence. So that's why now I advocate, like just being yourself, respect yourself, being able to go against society and society's ideals, because it does impact us. And, and it happened in my case.
It happened to you.
And I wasn't able to realize that by that time. But it took a little bit of time for me to actually recognize how was I being influenced.
Okay. And so now, how important do you think that parenting plays into that subject? Because you do mention that many people feel influence from the media that they consume.
Yes.
But how can good parenting help with that? Help for their children to not be so affected and to have their own personality?
Right. Parenting, it's a very important, good parenting is a very good, important factor. However, we don't live like in a cage.
True.
We cannot put our kids, in a cage and don't pretend that they're not going to be exposed to everything. But if they're being trained properly, they're being given like the specific tools they need for their life to respond towards society, is going to influence them in a positive way, like very much so. However, you have to consider that when you're young, if you're a child and this is part of your culture, when you go to a school bus, they're putting some type of media that is not decent. Your brain is like collecting all this information unconsciously is gonna affect you.
Yeah.
So parenting plays a very important role, and I'm glad you actually mentioned, because these start from an early age. So in my case, I come from a family that was divided. My parents were divorced.
Okay.
So I didn't have specific boundaries in my life when I was little. I had very strict boundaries from my mom's side, but from my dad's side, I did not have boundaries at all. So in my mind, I didn't have, like a specific idea, what should I do?
Okay.
In one hand, I had like a very strict rules, but in the other one, I did not.
And did you gravitate to like the less strict rules? And
yes, I was like, trying to understand what should I do. So that's why it really affected me. Okay. Even till I guess now that I'm a grown-up woman, because I had to learn many things that I didn't learn when I was little, because I was so spoiled by my dad.
Okay, and so that's an interesting point. Not many women or men would admit to that, about being spoiled as a little kid. So continue. So
yeah, and look, David, that's very important to actually understand, because now that I confront myself by myself, like I'm responsible economically, morally, personally of myself, I can understand that. For example, I'm going to give you one example. My dad used to spoil me a lot, to the point that I thought in my mind that I was like some kind of princess. I did not have respect for adults. I could talk back to adults at school, and I thought I could, just get my way. Yeah. And my dad would just always, reaffirm my situation, like my actions. He was like, I was his everything. But in the other side, my mom was like, you're not supposed to do this and that, blah, blah. So that is started to create like these mental patterns in my head. I like to explain this to people as the mental schemas are just these mental folders that you have in your brain to give meaning to the life you live. So you learn that if you touch the fire, you're gonna get burned. Yeah. So your brain activates that and put it in a folder, and so on. So in my mind, I didn't have this boundary. So as I started to grow up older and I came in my teen years, that was the hardest stage in my life.
Okay.
Then we can go over that in a little bit.
And we will.
But I just want to mention the one example I just told you I was going to give you is that everything started from an early age, but now that I'm an adult, for example, I never worked when I was younger. Okay. The only work I did was modeling, and that's not a job. I mean, that's just have fun. You know, that's
okay. I mean, for some it is a job.
David.
For you, it wasn't a job?
I mean,
is it tiring? I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm not a model, I wouldn't know.
Look, now that I really work, that's what I was saying. Now that I'm responsible for myself.
Got you.
Modeling was nothing.
So modeling was more of a hobby for you.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a job.
And plus, I didn't have to pay my bills. So I just modeled because I wanted it. Not because I had to.
Okay.
And plus, now that I know what it involves to be, responsible to go and work. For me, work means a lot of effort, responsibility, endurance. Sometimes you have to do things that you don't like it, but you have to, just show up to work. Modeling gives you the opportunity to have an easier life. Mm-hmm. And some jobs, real jobs. And don't take me wrong. I'm not saying I respect a lot that type of job.
Let's not offend modeling.
No, it's not to offend modeling, but the real is that real women like me, like my friends, like my coworkers, are not models. They have a family. They have to go home, take care of their children, clean. So modeling, it's
a different lifestyle.
Exactly.
It's a different lifestyle.
Completely different. So when I started to work, I was shocked about life.
It hit you.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Okay. Gotcha.
I should have learned this earlier. Because now it has caused me so much problems to adapt to the routine, to the responsibility. You have to show up. You don't feel okay? Doesn't matter.
You gotta be there. Yeah.
You show up to work or you're gonna get fired. That's easy. Oh, you wanna get late to work? They might fire you.
Yeah.
If you don't collect enough money to pay your bills, they're gonna cut your lights off. And some consequences.
You don't realize that when you're still, I guess, living with your parents, you're on the payroll.
Yes.
But as soon as, I guess, they cut the payroll, then that's where reality hits.
Exactly. So in my mind, I'm thinking I should have started to work earlier in my life. So I would have been, used to, just work.
Yeah.
And many things like that, just hit me when I got here. But I just mentioned this specific example because it's contemporary with what I'm living right now, connected with what it happened to me when I was little, with the tools that they provided me to.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because there can be people in our audience that are still, benefiting from their parents up to this point, or that maybe can relate to your situation. And so maybe this is important because this can help them, realize, okay, right now it's fine, but what about in the future? Or, when I don't have my parents, what do I do then? So for you, when did you realize, okay, I need to get myself together, I need to change, I need to get my life together? When was that moment?
Well, the problem for me, David, is that when I was telling you, as I was telling you, when I was younger, I was not mature enough to recognize this. But the good thing is that I met Jehovah in a very early age in my life. Even though I did not grow up in a Christian family, I studied the Bible when I was probably 5 years old. Okay. So my conscience started to be trained from an early age. So even though I was exposing myself to the world and trying to have meaning to what I was living, I knew what was right and what was wrong. Okay. So Jehovah always was able to provide me this is the way you have to follow. So if I was trying to deviate myself from it, he would put me just back in track. Gotcha. So this is not an overnight process. This comes from the moment I met him till right now. So it's a very long process, but I can tell you that when I was 17 years old, definitely that was a moment where I was I have to do everything right. But don't take me wrong, it's not that before I didn't want it. It's just that I was not mature enough.
You were in a different place.
Yeah, I was
in your life, and
I just wanted to be accepted. in society, you know?
Let's talk about that. Being accepted. It's difficult when you're a teenager because I think everyone wants to be accepted, especially from people you might look up to or you want to be friends with. Why was it difficult for you, that period of wanting to feel accepted?
Well, it was very difficult because I didn't realize who I was, and I would only consider what others thought about myself to give value to me. Okay. So, like, everything I thought about myself was in base of what others thought about me.
Wow. Okay.
So if I wasn't able to understand who I was truly inside, deeply in myself. So if I was not accepted, then I was not valuable. You know?
Wow, that's...
So...
Okay.
I used to have a very low self-esteem since I was surrounded in this superficialistic society. For me, it was very important to just look perfect all the time.
Okay.
I had to be beautiful. You know, I have to dress up good. I have to have a high standard of living, you know. So that created a lot of anxiety in my life. And I started to develop anxiety in my teen years.
Okay.
Because I just was so worried what others thought about myself.
Okay.
So, and it's very competitive. You know, the model industry is very competitive.
Talk about that. I don't know the modeling industry, but I'm guessing for jobs, contracts.
Yes, and just be surrounded by that. It's everything about how you look. And me me being a woman, it's even harder. Because when you're little, like, they teach you you're valuable for being, you know, just sweet, for being calm. You're not supposed to, you know, be possessive. You're not supposed to be, like, aggressive, like, just confront the world, be independent. And my culture just tries to make women think that they're supposed to just, you know, follow traditional roles. And another thing is that you are valuable for how you look, not for who you are. Especially if you're a woman, that's gonna be something very, very impactful. And I'm not making up this from the top of my head. I've done a lot of research about self-esteem, and that was, you know, why I was able to develop a self-esteem. But I'm talking about my early years.
Your early years, yeah.
But yes, definitely impacts a lot that we don't teach our little girls to be valuable for who they are. It's like, oh, you're so pretty, you know, let's treat her like if she was weak, like if she was fragile. And I'm not saying that that's not right, but I'm just saying that we shouldn't, like, emphasize too much on it as the most important thing. Okay. And then our society, if once you start to research how society promotes this ideal, you know, over and over through commercials, through magazines, you say,
they
like,
paint the perfect picture of what a woman should be. Even guys, but I guess to some extent, guys, there's that less pressure.
Yes.
In that aspect. So for you, how did you overcome that? What were a few things that helped you? Was it your mother, your father, close friends, or was it you just thinking, okay, who am I, and then going through that journey?
Well, everything started the first person that has always helped me through the years has been Jehovah. Okay. Like, for me, he's a real person. He's been there for me as a father, as a friend, as a caregiver, like, as my everything. Okay. So, of course, my family as well. But I moved here when I was 17 years old by myself.
Okay, so you were young.
So I left everything.
Why'd you leave? Why'd you leave everything?
Oh, because I wanted to come and have a higher education in the United States.
Okay.
So
what education were you pursuing?
Just any type, whatever I wanted. You know, in this case, I wanted to study chemistry. That was the main thing. I didn't know I was gonna go into psychology. Okay. But the first thing was just chemical engineering. That was the first thing. And the best schools for engineers are in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Texas A&M, UT, and so on. So that's why my dad said, okay, go and study in Texas. My dad is a petroleum engineer.
So he was happy.
Yeah, he supported me. My mom was, no, you're not leaving.
So he was like, wow, like, you know, I can understand that. So that's, you talk about your mom. She was like, no, you're not going.
She's like, no, you're not going. No, you know, I was underage.
Yeah, you were,
yeah. She had to, like, sign a paper.
Or else you couldn't go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I made, like a tantrum. I'm not gonna talk to you never in my life if you don't give me the permission to go. And my dad was like, hey, let her go, let her go, let her go. So now that I look back and think about and reflect of what she was doing for me, was that she was right. I shouldn't have came by myself because I was not ready.
Okay.
I was not ready to confront America. This is the land of freedom. You know, like I had not an adult supervision in my life at
you
that
were free.
time. I was free with 17 years old, which is not something right.
So you get here when you're 17, and what's the first thing that you do? You enroll in college, you find an apartment?
Well, I did all this process when I was back home. I came here through the University of St. Thomas.
Okay.
I was enrolled in an ESL program. So my dad flew with me to Houston and he left me in this home state. That's how the university called these houses that receive international students with an American family, and they're supposed to look after you.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I remember my dad dropping me in her house, and he's like, okay, you have to stay here.
Like, yeah, I guess, so in your head, were you thinking, okay, America, it's going to be fun, it's going to be great, and then you get there and it's like, oh man, like I actually have to stay here. Yes,
I'm like, I don't want to stay here.
Okay, and so what did your dad say?
My dad said, you had to, like, and I said, you know, and the mom from the homestay, she said, you know, you have to go to your room, and I'm like, no, I think I just want to stay with my dad in the hotel, because my dad was gonna stay for 1 week.
You're very close with your dad.
Yeah, I'm not. Yes, I am, but I'm closer nowadays. I'm closer with my mom.
Okay.
But I've always been very close with my dad.
Okay.
I was a daddy's girl, and but now I have my best friend is my mom.
Okay, so switch roles.
Yes, but it's it's been a lot of changes in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I remember the mother from the homestay, she was like, "No, you're not gonna stay in the hotel," and I'm like, why is she telling me I cannot stay? And my dad, well, you have to stay. I'm like, I remember I went and I cried the entire night. I'm like, I don't want to stay here. I want to go back to Colombia. Like, this is not what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
And I cried every single day for an entire month.
Wow, it's a lot of crying.
Yes, every single day. Every time I was by myself, I would cry. And I wanted to go back to Colombia. My dad left, and then he would call me and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I want to go back to Colombia. And he said, well, if you want to come, just come. But we had paid around $30,000 for 4 months. So he's like, if you leave, I'm just going to lose that money.
So, it was an investment in what you wanted.
Yeah, and it was just for 4 months. So you can imagine we were talking about so much money involved.
Yeah.
So and everybody would call me and say, my relatives, my siblings, don't leave, everything's going to be okay. But at the moment, I was like, I just want to leave. I hate this place. Like,
okay.
Another example that I can give you of not having enough tools to, be able to leave home was that I was not used to wash my dishes, wash my clothes. Okay. So when I came to the home state, she's like, okay, wash your dishes. I'm like, I would pretend that I didn't know English. I'm like, excuse me, I don't understand what you're saying. She's like, yes, I know you do understand. Wash your dishes.
Okay.
And I'm like, I would cry and wash my dishes,
Okay.
I was not ready.
You're not ready?
I was not ready.
Okay, wow. So I'm glad you share this with us. And so then after that, you start studying. For how long did you study?
Well, I studied English for 1 year.
Okay.
And I think that was the time where I had freedom the most, because I was not enrolled in college. It was just studying English.
Just studying English?
I got to meet a lot of people from different parts of the world, from Europe, like France, Italy. I had friends from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Lebanon. I had friends from Venezuela, Argentina, and every person shared, left like a memory in my heart and shared with me something that I would never forget. Okay. And I think if people ask me nowadays, what is the thing that you like about Houston the most? And my answer was the same, and it's still the same today. It's just I love diversity. I've been able to meet people from many parts of the world, and I just love that. Just the different cultures are so rich and fascinated that you just immerse yourself in each custom, in their food, in their habits. It's just beautiful.
That's nice. And so you get that experience, that diversity that you don't get in Colombia.
Yeah, definitely.
And after you experience that, you like it, the first year is gone. You actually have to enroll in college.
Yeah.
How was that, the first few college semesters? Getting used to the actual homework and classes, being a little bit more strict with your time management?
Yes. Well, definitely that was hard, especially because English is not my first language.
Okay.
So that was extremely hard. The first 2 semesters were the hardest ones, because I would have difficulty understanding some teachers, because some teachers are not like Native Americans.
Yes.
It's like they are from Africa, India, so on. So I would have a lot of difficulties with some specific teachers understanding. There was a class, Introduction to Engineering, that I did not understand a single word that this teacher said.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, what I'm gonna do?
Just read the textbook, right? Just open it up.
Yes, but college level was, I was not as good, it takes time to get used to. It's hard for children from here that come from high school and then they enter college. It's hard for them.
Yeah, because there's still transition. I experienced that my first year, and even though it was a smoother transition because I did go to community college, maybe it would have been more difficult at a university, but you still feel it. You feel that transition from high school, because it's up to you. Like, your teachers don't care.
Yes.
Well, they do care, but what I mean is you're like more responsible of what you have to do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think language was the first barrier in my life. The first year I was like, oh my gosh, like I had to record the lectures, try to go over them, get as much help from school as possible, and then getting to fulfill all the schedule, the homework, and I did good. It was hard. I think the first year I had to take this class that it was like 33 something. It's like British English.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my gosh. I had to write like an entire journal about different books from Europe, from Mary Shelley.
That's another thing. In regards to your degree plan, you were studying chemical engineering.
Well, but the first 2 years you get to do just the core classes.
Yeah.
So those are just the basic classes.
Gotcha.
So I had to, I emphasized a lot in communications and language. Like I took, as I was telling you, British English. I took chemistry. I took math. You have the core values that you have to pick from, and you have several classes. Yeah. As long as you fulfill that specific core on the program, you're fine. But I got to pick some classes, and I loved chemistry, of course.
So now you're a chemical engineer, right?
Yes. But I don't know. I also did psychology.
Okay.
So and now I'm practicing more the psychology part in my work.
So when did that change? When did you decide, okay, chemistry, engineering is probably not for me. I'm going to delve into psychology.
Yes. Well, that was when I took introduction to psychology. I fell in love with psychology. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the study of human behavior. We're humans. And I was like so fascinated to be able to understand why I did some things.
Okay.
What was my mental process, why I'm doing these, why people's doing that. We're social beings. How do we learn? How we interact with others. I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. And I got an 8 in that class. I'm like, I want to take more psychology classes.
Okay.
And I end up, taking more psychology classes. And when the oil industry, went down, I'm like, I probably, just want to just invest more time in the psychology degree and just get a minor for chemistry.
So is it fair to say that you initially thought you wanted to do chemistry?
Yes.
But in college, you figured out that what you really wanted to do was psychology. Is it fair to say that?
Not really. I always wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
But it's just, I wanted also to be a psychologist.
Okay.
It's just, I wanted both.
You wanted both?
Yes. And then I end up doing a minor in art.
Okay.
So we humans are not just so strict about one thing. We're good at this and I want to do this for my life and just want this, and we cannot close ourselves in that circle.
Gotcha.
Because we're humans. We can experience many different things. Unfortunately, in this system of things, we don't have all the time to do many things.
Exactly.
But so we would have to pick the one that is most convenient for ourselves and the one that is going to make us happy.
Okay.
And it's gonna help us to fulfill our priorities. So in my life, my priority changed when I was like around 17 or 18. I wanted to serve Jehovah full time, and I knew that as an engineer, it was gonna be very hard because I was not gonna be able to serve full time.
Okay. Yeah, and when you were speaking about the psychology, making that switch, right, from being a chemical engineer to being a psychologist, and majoring in that, what were a few, and you did touch on it, schedule-wise, and your priorities changed. So for the audience, so they can take some value from this, is it okay to change your major, or throughout the process, change your mind and change your priorities? Because I think in society, most people think that it's not okay and that once you set your mind to something, you better finish it. That's what I hear and that's what I see. But I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, well, I think that definitely having some previous knowledge and understanding and goals of what you want to do for your life is very important. Like, you don't want to show up to college and not know anything about what you want to do. So definitely it is very important you have some prior knowledge of how you want to guide your life on what specific type of education you want to acquire. But I wouldn't say that it's wrong to move from one career to another one, but you have to keep in mind how much money you would have to invest, how many years you would have to add up to that degree. So you have to be mindful to the consequences that comes with it. So you just don't want to, I would say before, just do what you love. But now I've learned that you have to love what you do. Sometimes life changes and we have to be prepared for those changes. So we just don't want to concentrate, say, oh, okay, I want these and then I want that. Because when you're young, you want many things. So I say, yeah, it's not, I don't think it's something wrong with changing if you consider all the consequences that comes along with it and try to minimize all the negative aspects. Like, you have to have a balance and say, okay, if I change my degree, it's going to take me 5 more years, or maybe it's just going to add up 1 more year. Are my parents responsible for that money, or am I responsible for that money?
Okay.
So my first thing is just keep in mind that everything you do is going to affect your loved ones, the people that love you the most. is gonna get affected. So we can't be just so selfish and take decisions upon of what I want. Oh, I want this today. I want that tomorrow. I don't want it anymore. Because people around us are going to get affected. So it's very complex. We have to just summarize this, we have to have priorities in mind and the consequences of your decisions. And upon considering that, you'll be able to take a better decision for yourself and for the ones around you.
Perfect. And so, I mean, at a young age, like you said, many people don't know what they want. And personally, I think that's okay as long as you're trying to figure it out and you add that, I guess, that reality check of, okay, I want to do this and I'm trying to figure it out. But like you said, take into account the consequences. If mommy and daddy are paying for it, okay, how can I support or help, in that way? Always keeping that in mind. Because then when mom and dad tell you, hey, you can't do this, you got to remember that you're still under their rules because mom and dad are, you're on the payroll. Yeah. But I think a lot of people don't realize that. So that's a good point. Now, when it comes to you finally find what you want to do, right? Or you think you do. And you're working towards this now. Did you receive a lot of pressure from family members or friends? Like, what the heck? Why are you doing psychology? What are you going to do with psychology? Because, and this is just from what I hear, psychology is a very popular program that a lot of people take. Some say that it's easy. Personally, I don't know. I don't think it would be easy. Everything has its skill level. But for you, how did you deal with that? With, I guess, that pressure of people thinking they know what's best for you?
Yeah, well, definitely. That was a big factor. I received a lot of pressure. Like, nobody wanted to support me but my mom. Like, she is like, as long as you serve Jehovah, that's good. That's the only thing that matters. And as when you internalize that, you think you learn to understand that the only thing that matters for your life is what Jehovah thinks about yourself. Of course, you don't want to hurt nobody, but Jehovah's never going to ask you to do something wrong. So that was like, my strength to know that I was going to be able to live a better life, by studying psychology in that moment. Because psychology is not an easy topic for someone who is good at math. Like, engineering is not going to be an easy topic for someone who is good at reading and writing. Okay. So each thing has its level of expertise. Like painting, it's not easy. Exactly. And I've learned many people think that getting a painting done is something easy, that artists are just not educated,
just or paint on a canvas. But
actually, I've heard, especially with abstract work, I've heard people like, oh, I could do this. And
you look at them like, oh.
I said, okay, here is the brush and here is the canvas. Do it. And I've tested this, and people are like, how you even know how to mix colors? There is even a theory for color, which is super hard. And once you go,
all I know is the color wheel. That's all.
It's super hard. And once, even for people who are like that love technology, that they edit pictures, like photographers, they have to learn color theory. And they have a program that actually can mix the colors with a specific amount, with the perfect proportion, and you just move like the wheel from one side to the other and trying to get the color you want. So my point is that each thing is challenging for a person according to what they're good at.
Exactly. Like, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses.
Yes, okay. Exactly. But yeah, definitely I received a lot of pressure, and just summarizing that is just I was able to deal with it because I found people like spiritual friends who would always remind me what was important. I had my mom and I had Jehovah. And the most important thing, the things that we create in this society are just temporary. What I'm going to study, what I'm going to do, what type of life should I have. But at the end, nothing of that really matters. Nothing. Doesn't matter if you studied engineering, if you study communications, Jehovah's not gonna ask for your degree. And the reality is, David, is that even if you achieved what you wanted to study, that's not gonna guarantee you that you're gonna get the job you wanted. And even if you get the job you wanted, doesn't mean they're gonna pay you as well
as you think you are. Okay.
And I'm living that right now.
Okay, so let's jump to that topic, which is very interesting because there's people that study different things for different reasons.
Yes.
Some people study, they go to college because they just love learning.
Yes.
There's other people that, which could be like an artist. There's a saying that says artists, I don't know what the saying is, but they're
passionate about what they do.
They're passionate, but they can't. They're not really sellers. They're just like very artistic.
Yes.
So they're just so they can't sell. They'll go broke. They might be super talented, but they don't have that business savvy. And so there's that person that just loves learning and loves to take all information. Then there's others that go to college for the money, right? For the degree. There's others that do it for, I don't know, to say I went to this university and this prestige, right? Definitely. So there's a variety of people and reasons.
All of those.
Okay, so tell me, how important is it to, if you do go to college, because in this podcast and whenever we do the interviews, not everybody has, and I don't think it's required to be happy.
No.
But if you do go to college, how important is it to go with the right intention?
Okay, there's 3 things that you mentioned that I want to go over. I will answer your question. But first, I just want to touch a little bit of what you said about artists. Because when you were talking about how some artists can go broke and stuff, you just remind me about Vincent van Gogh. Okay. And I'm sure many people know about Vincent van Gogh.
And if you don't, just Google him.
Yeah, he's a great, great artist. He was actually.
Because he's dead.
He's dead for so many centuries, but.
Yeah, but we're still talking about him, so
exactly.
Yeah.
One of his famous paintings is Starry Night.
Okay.
And Vincent van Gogh was like a pioneer for the Impressionism, which is a type of art. Like Monet. So Vincent, but it's very interesting because I don't know many people know this about him, but when he was alive, he did not sell any painting.
Okay.
Not even one painting.
Gotcha.
He used to have mental problems, and Theo was his brother, and Theo used to take care of him because nobody would purchase his paintings. And it was not because their paintings were not beautiful, but because society had another meaning of what beautiful was by that time. So that's why I always emphasize, in my videos and what I talk about this career of being happy and have an optimal well-being, is that society might shape different perceptions about what is beautiful, what is not, how women should look like from the 18th century back to the 3rd century. It has changed.
It changes.
It changes from time. So I want to touch about that because we of course don't want to discourage those who want to pursue an artistic degree, but that's why it's very important to have priorities. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I also want to mention about having to take the decision what to study is that it just came to my mind that it was that point that before I used to want to have this standard of life, remember, since I was little.
Exactly.
And that's why I wanted to be an engineer. So I would imagine myself living in Dubai. I was a model, an engineer. I would marry an Arab. Yes.
Marrying an Arab. Okay.
Yes. Just being in Dubai, super rich and super beautiful. That was my mind.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted so bad to be an engineer.
Okay.
I loved that idea.
Got you.
But as I grew up and I got more mature and I got to know myself and I got closer to God, I realized that I don't want that. That's not gonna make me happy. I know it's not. And I had a little touch of what it means to have, to be recognized in a wrong way, what it means to be, desired, what it means to be in a public, what it means to be with people super rich.
Mm-hmm.
But my moral values would always here with me, reminding me and making me feel I'm not happy. I was in the wrong way, and I'm like, and this shocked me because I saw the pictures that they took in the wrong way, and I was just so unhappy, David. As a matter of fact, I had to show you that picture. I was just, you can see that
The unhappiness.
I was so unhappy.
Okay.
When I saw that picture, I'm like, oh man, this is not gonna take me anywhere. And the more up you go in the standard of living, you know, the harder it is for you to actually, you know, move away.
They do say, and I read this, I think it was a Malcolm Gladwell book, but there's a level of money or salary that you receive that brings your happiness to a certain level, but once it reaches over that, there's really no, it plateaus. After you reach a certain level, I don't know what the number was. I'm guessing 75,000 was like the optimum, I guess, happiness. And then after that, it's really...
Exactly.
And so it really doesn't matter.
And this is a scientific study. This is not like something that someone published and say, oh, yes. No, this is a scientific study where they collected, you know, all this information from the population, and they were able, you know, to scientifically prove that this is the specific type range of money that you can earn, and it's going to actually contribute to your happiness. So that's a really good point. So then we can jump back to your question. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But you mentioned like really good points that I would just want to go over. And correct me if I'm wrong. Recording. So correct me if I'm wrong, if I actually remember the question you asked me. But it was like how important it is to have like the right motivation to go to school and actually pick in a specific degree.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is very important. It is very, very important because young people do not understand how crucial and how important are those years for your life. This is going to lead the type of life you're going to have. This is going to at least influence, let me correct that. It's going to influence highly the type of life you're going to have, you know, or how your values are going to be reinforced in a positive way. If you're trying to pursue richness and you're just going through these specific 5 years of your life, it's just going to have a huge impact biologically, because when you are in these years, your brain hasn't developed to the highest. We stop, like, you know, the growth of our brain at the age of 25, around that age. So these last years where your brain is like a little sponge, like learning everything, not only what you study is gonna affect you, but people don't realize that your moral values are also connected to what you are putting in your brain. I don't know if that makes sense. But
we're getting a little into the psychology, guys. Not really my expertise, but thank you for sharing that.
So yeah, so my point, the simplest way to look at it is that don't think that just going to school is just about learning these and, you know, how to program this computer, and that's not gonna affect the way I see life, because our brain is very smart, and like our neurons are interconnected one another, helping us to give meaning to the world we live. And the brain's primary goal is to help every person to survive. So when it comes to the actual brain, the brain will do everything and collect as much information as possible to help me, to help you, and to help you survive.
Okay. Wow. A lot of planning. So to summarize, I was about to say it in Spanish. To summarize what you're saying, it's important to have the right motivation going into college. And touching on the whole going to college if you want to be rich, I feel like that's just a recipe for disaster. Not everyone reaches that, like you stated. And even if you do, what's the true meaning of your life?
Right.
So those are definitely things. And I always say you have to fall in love with the process of what you're doing. Always, if it's truly what you want to do, then day to day you'll enjoy doing it, not just because of the money or for the recognition, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point, David. And I used to think that way, that just you have to love what you do. Like if you are doing what you love, you're just gonna be happy, and that's actually the best way to look at it. But I'm aging, as I'm getting older.
I mean, you're not old.
Now my meaning. Like what I mean is that as you grow up.
Okay.
As you grow up, you realize that life gives you many things that you don't expect. Life can change just like this. You can be driving, going home, boom, you get crashed into a car accident. Maybe you might never be able to walk. Or you realize that, okay, I have the perfect job, and boom, you're fired.
Things change.
Yes, things change, but this life changes dramatically. And I wish I would have known this when I was earlier, to understand that, sometimes like just finishing the degree you wanted doesn't mean, and that doesn't guarantee you that you're gonna get the job that you're expecting, or the type, or that you're gonna actually use your degree. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I really, really want to emphasize, even though we talked about it earlier, is because I know many people, successful people, according to what success means for this
society. Yeah.
Which for society ideals was a person who has money. That's not what I believe is a person. That's not what it means to be successful according to me. Mm-hmm. But according to society, and it's just they didn't even use their degree, okay, but they're earning a lot of money. And I'm like, how did you end up doing that? It's like, well, I just got a good proposal for this specific type of job. They trained me, and I've been doing this for the past 30 years. So where I want to go with this is that we have to be prepared for any change and understand that circumstances changes. So, but what you cannot control what happens around you most of the times. Things just happen.
Yeah.
Just come.
You just have to adjust.
But you have to concentrate on what you can control, and that comes from here. I'm from here.
So it's a mental game. Now, nowadays, there's a lot of, and I feel like this will grow more with the years, there's a lot of mental awareness now. Mm-hmm. in society. More people are more aware of mental health and how important it is. And because, there's people that are doing crazy things, even celebrities. And so people are more aware of it. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that. How important mental health is in someone's life.
Okay, so let's start with this question. Do you think that physical health it's important?
Of course.
Okay, so there is a study that shows that your psychological health affects your physical health, and vice versa. So if you have good physical health, that means that it's going to contribute for your mental health. Okay. But what happens if you have a not really healthy state of mind? What that's going to influence to your physical health? You're
not going to want to wake up and work out or go for the run.
Exactly. That's a good example. So most people don't realize that, your mental health is connected with your physical health. And I think that's the root to really understand mental health. Because, our psyche is so complex. Like we were talking even a little bit about it before we started the interview, how our brain is connected, how the neurons communicate with one another is just pure electricity and chemicals. And all these chemicals actually, create what we believe about perception. These chemicals, a combination of specific chemicals create, emotions. So once we're able to understand that we need to connect with our inner self, to connect how our actual body is telling us from inside, not only our physical part, we're going to be able to actually understand more and control more our actions. So that definitely, like I was telling you, I come from a background that I did not have a good self-esteem, and then I started to actually know myself. So even though all these years that I live here by myself were super hard, they provided me the tools to confront this world, because now I know who I am, but deeply inside.
And you're sure of it?
Like I am super sure about it.
That's good.
After doing research of understanding how our biological part, so when I talk about biological part, I'm talking about everything that is inside us, talking from the brain, connected, with our nervous system, connected with our muscles, connected with our gastric system. Do you even know that we have neurons in our stomach?
I did not know that. But I'm sure that
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. When I studied it, I'm like, wait, hold on. We have like a little lab. Like it's very the complexion of this organ in our or these chemicals that are in our stomach. It's very similar how it's connected in our brain.
Okay.
It's very, very similar.
So what you're saying is mental health has a lot to do with our physical health.
Yes.
And I would understand that. I don't know if this applies to how you're explaining it, but for example, when I go to the gym, I'm more motivated if I go with a friend. I know myself, so I'd rather bring a friend with me to motivate myself. And so I know that I can be self-motivated as well sometimes, but when I can't, I'm like, okay, this is what I need to stay motivated.
Right.
So I know myself, and I'm like, okay, this is what I trick myself in a way. I'm like, okay,
yes.
like I need to have someone. I need to be accountable to someone in order to continue. With that.
Yes.
I don't know if that.
Well, yes, that could be related with it from a motivational aspect.
Okay.
But we wanna connect that to our physical part.
Okay.
So how do you feel after you do exercise?
Awesome.
So,
even though I'm dying in the process, but
if you compare the days that you exercise with the days that you don't exercise, how do you feel internally?
Oh, you feel much better. You feel
better.
great. Yeah.
Because your endorphin levels and your dopamine levels, which are chemicals in our brain that make us feel happy, are increased by the physical activity.
Okay.
So you see how that is connected? By you exercising, you raise your levels of dopamine and endorphins, and then the result is that you're feeling better. You're able to sleep better.
So people should work out.
So people should work out. Yeah,
Okay.
That's why I've done a lot of study about motivation, about happiness. As a matter of fact, the theory of the most important research that I'm doing or that I've been doing is about motivation. Maslow hierarchy of needs talks about mainly and deeply about how we need to be motivated in order to fulfill different activities in our life.
Okay.
From just basic things like sleeping, eating, to go to work, to trying to feel better inside me, trying to connect with myself, understanding myself better, how I'm doing physically, I am doing enough exercise and so on.
Wow.
So I like the fact that you touched on motivation, because it's so important, David. It's so important. If you're not motivated to wake up from your bed,
you won't.
what are you gonna do?
Play Madden all day, or who knows?
I need to eat. You need to eat. You need to take a shower. You need to go to work.
There's things So staying motivated is very important, and I like that you touched on several aspects of mental health. So we're really happy to have had you on the podcast. Before we end the podcast, I always like to ask our guests for 3 keys, 3 major keys that have helped you that you want to leave our audience with.
Okay.
And I put you on the spot, but I think this is where all the magic happens.
Okay. The first thing I would say, the key that helped me a lot was my relationship with God. Okay. There is nothing more important than that. And in my theory, I talked about it, how I do believe that each human in this world possesses an innate need to have an interaction with our Creator. Without being able to acknowledging that, we would never, ever find true happiness.
Okay.
Second thing, you need to look for your priorities. If you don't have priorities in life, you won't be able to do anything.
Okay.
You're just gonna jump from one place to another without knowing anything. And the third thing, you need to take care of yourself and the ones that you love, mentally and physically. If you do that, you're gonna be in a better good position to fight in this world, because this war, this real world, is definitely no easy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Paula, for being on the show and letting us know, giving us insights with your psychology major expertise and just sharing your personal experiences. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh no, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you to the audience that took the time to listen to us. Was definitely very appreciated, and in some sense I want to just send all my positive energy and all my love to all of those who are listening to us.